Hey there, awesome viewers. Before we start this super cool story, I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever met someone who seemed quiet but had a big surprise up their sleeve? Drop your answer in the comments below and tell me where you're watching from today. Oh, and if you love stories that grab you and don't let go, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Okay, let's jump into the fun. It was just another day at Lincoln Middle School for Tommy Reed. Or at least that's what everyone thought. Lincoln Middle School was a big place, with bright red lockers lining the halls and a noisy cafeteria that smelled like pizza and French fries. Kids rushed through the hallways, laughing, shouting, and tossing crumpled papers at each other. The bell rang loud, telling everyone it was time to get to class or head to lunch. It was the kind of place where you could blend in if you wanted to. And Tommy. He blended in better than anyone. Tommy was a skinny kid, not super tall, not super short. Just regular, you know. His brown hair was always a little messy, like he forgot to brush it. He wore glasses that were too big for his face, sliding down his nose all the time. His sneakers were old, with holes near the toes, and his backpack was so beat up it looked like it had been through a war. The straps were frayed, and one zipper didn't even work anymore. To most kids at Lincoln, Tommy was just there. Like a chair in the classroom or a tree in the courtyard. Nobody really noticed him. Nobody really cared. But here's the thing about Tommy. He wasn't just some random kid. Nope, behind those big glasses and that quiet stare, he was hiding something big, something so huge it could make jaws drop and eyes pop out. Nobody at school had a clue, not the teachers, not the kids, not even the janitor who swept the halls every night. Tommy's secret was like a treasure chest locked tight, and only he had the key. And today, oh, today was the day that lock was about to snap open. Picture this, it's a sunny morning and Tommy's walking into school like he does every day. His backpack bounces on his shoulders and his sneakers squeak on the shiny floor. Kids zoom past him, not even looking his way. Some are talking about the new video game that just came out. Others are giggling about a funny video they saw online. Tommy doesn't say a word. He just keeps walking, his head down, his glasses slipping a little. But if you looked close, really close, you'd see something in his eyes. A spark. A tiny hint that he's not as ordinary as everyone thinks. See, Tommy wasn't the kind of kid who bragged or showed off. He didn't need to. While other kids were busy trying to be the loudest or the coolest, Tommy was happy just being himself. He'd sit in class, doodling in his notebook, listening to the teacher talk about math or history. He'd eat his lunch alone at a corner table, munching on a peanut butter sandwich. He didn't make a fuss. He didn't cause trouble, but that didn't mean he was weak. Oh no, Tommy was strong in a way nobody expected. And that strength, it was tied to his secret. What was that secret? I know you're curious. I can almost hear you saying, "Come on, tell us already." But hold on just a second. Good stories take time, like waiting for your favorite cookies to bake. If I spilled the secret now, it wouldn't be as fun, right? Let's just say Tommy had something inside him, something he'd been working on for a long time. It wasn't a shiny toy or a fancy gadget. It was better, way better. And it was about to shake things up at Lincoln Middle School like an earthquake. Let's go back to that morning. Tommy's in the hallway heading to his first class. The bell's about to ring and the halls are packed. Kids are everywhere, bumping into each other, shouting, laughing. Tommy weaves through the crowd, careful not to get pushed. He's used to this. He knows how to stay out of the way. But as he turns a corner, he hears something, a voice, a loud one. "Hey, Toothpick," the voice calls out. Tommy doesn't stop walking, but his shoulders tense just a little. He knows that voice. Everyone does. It's Jake Carter, the biggest, loudest kid in 6th grade. Jake's tall, with spiky hair and a grin that's more mean than friendly. He's the kind of kid who thinks he's the boss of everything. And right now, he's standing in the middle of the hallway with his buddies, staring right at Tommy. "What's in that ugly backpack today, huh?" Jake says, laughing. His friends laugh too, like it's the funniest thing ever. More nerd junk. Tommy keeps his head down and walks faster. He doesn't answer, he never does. Jake, been picking on him forever since the first day of school. It's always the same. Jake calls him names like Toothpick or Four Eyes. Sometimes he knocks Tommy's books out of his hands. Sometimes he borrows Tommy's pencils and never gives them back. And Tommy, he just takes it. He doesn't fight, he doesn't yell, he just keeps going. But today, something feels different. Maybe it's the way Tommy's gripping his backpack straps a little tighter. Maybe it's the way his lips twitch like he's fighting a smile. Whatever it is, it's small, so small nobody notices. Not Jake, not his buddies, not the kids watching from the lockers. They all think it's just another day of Jake being Jake and Tommy being, well, Tommy. What they don't know is that Tommy's secret is like a fire inside him, burning brighter every day. Every time Jake laughs, every time someone ignores him, that fire grows. It's not anger, it's not hate, it's something else, something powerful. And today that fire, about to get a whole lot hotter. Let's talk about Lincoln Middle School for a second. It's not a bad place, really. The classrooms have big windows, so sunlight pours in all day. The gym's huge, with shiny basketball courts and climbing ropes that touch the ceiling. The cafeteria's always buzzing, with kids trading snacks and telling jokes. But like any school, it's got its problems. Kids like Jake make it tough for kids like Tommy. They think being loud and pushy makes them cool. They think picking on someone quieter makes them strong. Tommy's seen it all. He's watched Jake scare other kids too, not just him. There's Sarah, who stutters when she's nervous. Jake mimics her until she turns red. There's Max, who loves drawing comics. Jake ripped up one of Max's sketches once just for fun. Tommy notices everything. He's always watching, always listening. And every time he sees Jake act mean, it's like another piece of his secret gets stronger. But what is that secret? Okay, I'll give you a tiny hint, just one. It's not about money or toys or anything like that. It's about something Tommy's been doing when nobody's looking. Something he's gotten really good at. Something that's going to make everyone at Lincoln Middle School stop and stare. Want another clue? Nope, you've gotta keep listening to find out. Back to that morning. Tommy makes it to class just as the bell rings. He slides into his seat at the back where he always sits. The teacher, Mrs. Larson, starts talking about fractions, but Tommy's not really listening. Not because he's bored, he's actually pretty good at math. No, he's thinking about something else. His hands rest on his desk, and if you looked close, you'd see his fingers tapping softly. Not nervous tapping, steady tapping, like he's counting down to something. The other kids are scribbling notes or whispering to their friends. Nobody's paying attention to Tommy. Why would they? He's just the quiet kid with the holy sneakers. But that's okay with Tommy. He doesn't need them to notice him, not yet. He's got a plan and it's been building for a long time. Every day he walks through those halls, every day he hears Jake's voice, it's like he's adding another piece to that plan. And today's the day it all comes together. Outside, the sun's climbing higher, making the school's windows gleam. The courtyard's empty now, but it won't be later. That's where kids go at lunch to hang out or play games. That's where Jake and his crew like to show off, acting like they own the place. And that's where Tommy's headed, not because he wants to, but because he knows he has to. Something coming, something big. And when it happens, nobody's going to believe it. Tommy's secret isn't just a thing he's hiding, it's a part of who he is. It's why he doesn't cry when Jake calls him names. It's why he doesn't run to the teachers or fight back in the halls. He doesn't need to. He's got something better. Something that's going to make Jake's jaw hit the floor. And when that moment comes, oh, it's going to be good. So what's Tommy hiding? Why's he so calm when everyone else would be mad or scared? I know you're dying to know, and guess what? You're about to find out. This day at Lincoln Middle School isn't like any other day. It's the day Tommy Reed stops being invisible. It's the day his secret comes out. And when it does, the whole school going to talk about it for weeks. Stick around, because this story's just getting started. What do you think Tommy's secret is? Got a guess? Share it in the comments and let's see who's closest. If you're loving this so far, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Tommy's big moment is coming and you don't want to miss it. Tommy Reed's life at Lincoln Middle School wasn't a piece of cake. Every single day something tough happened. It was like a storm cloud followed him around, ready to rain on his parade. And that storm cloud had a name, Jake Carter. Jake was the kind of kid who made trouble wherever he went, and for some reason he picked Tommy as his favorite target. Picture the cafeteria at lunchtime. It's loud, with kids talking, trays clanging, and the smell of pizza and tater tots in the air. Tables are packed with groups of friends laughing and swapping snacks. Tommy's at his usual spot, a small table in the corner, away from the crowd. He's got his lunch in front of him, a peanut butter sandwich, an apple, and a juice box. Nothing fancy, but it's his and he's hungry. Then, like clockwork, Jake and his crew show up. Jake's tall, with spiky blonde hair and a grin that's more mean than friendly. His buddies, 3 or 4 kids who follow him like shadows, are just as loud. They stomp over to Tommy's table, their sneakers squeaking on the floor. The whole cafeteria seems to quiet down a bit, like everyone knows something about to happen. "Yo, nerd," Jake says, his voice sharp and mocking. He leans over Tommy's table, his shadow falling across the tray. Before Tommy can even blink, Jake snatches the sandwich right out of his hands. "You don't need this, do you?" he says, holding it up like a trophy. His friends burst out laughing, slapping each other's backs. Some other kids at nearby tables giggle too, but it's nervous laughter, like they're scared to not join in. Tommy just sits there, staring at his empty tray. His apple and juice box are still there, but his sandwich, his favorite part, is gone. He doesn't yell. He doesn't grab it back. He doesn't even look mad. He just watches Jake with those quiet eyes, his glasses catching the light from the cafeteria windows. Jake takes a big bite of the sandwich, chewing loud on purpose. "Peanut butter," he says, smirking. Too good for a loser like you, Toothpick. That's what he calls Tommy Toothpick because he's skinny, or sometimes loser or four eyes because of his glasses. Jake's got a whole list of names and he uses them every chance he gets. His buddies laugh again and one of them, a kid with a buzz cut, tosses a napkin at Tommy's tray. It lands in his juice, soaking it up. The bell's still a while away, so Jake doesn't leave. He leans closer, his voice low but mean. "What's wrong, Toothpick? Gonna cry?" He waits like he's hoping Tommy will do something, anything, to give him an excuse to keep going. But Tommy doesn't move, he doesn't speak. He just keeps looking at Jake, his face calm, his hands still on the table. Finally, Jake gets bored. He tosses the rest of the sandwich onto the floor and stomps on it, leaving a smear of peanut butter on the tiles. "Oops," he says, grinning. His crew laughs like it's the funniest thing ever and they walk off, high-fiving each other. The other kids go back to their lunches, their voices loud again like nothing happened. Tommy's left with his squashed sandwich and a tray that feels emptier than before. But it's not just lunch. Jake's mean streak follows Tommy everywhere. In the hallways, when Tommy's carrying his books to class, Jake will accidentally bump into him. Wham! Tommy's books hit the floor, pages flapping open. "Watch where you're going, loser," Jake says, stepping over them like they're trash. His buddies snicker, and Tommy has to kneel down, picking up his stuff while kids step around him. Sometimes it's smaller things. Like when Tommy's sharpening a pencil, Jake will swipe it and snap it in half. Or when Tommy's got his backpack on, Jake will tug the strap hard, making him stumble. It's always something every day, every chance Jake gets, and the worst part, nobody stops it. The teachers are busy, rushing to classes or grading papers. They barely notice. Once a teacher saw Jake shove Tommy and just said, "Boys, settle down," like it was no big deal. Jake grinned and walked away. Tommy didn't say a word. The other kids, they're too scared to help. Jake's big and his crew's always with him. Nobody wants to be his next target. Some kids feel bad for Tommy, you can see it in their eyes when they glance his way, but they don't speak up. They don't want trouble. So Tommy's on his own, day after day, dealing with Jake's laughs and sneers. But here's the thing about Tommy, he's not like other kids. Most kids would get mad, they'd yell or cry or run to a teacher. Some might even try to fight back even if they'd lose. But Tommy, he doesn't do any of that. He doesn't cry when Jake takes his lunch. He doesn't flinch when his books hit the floor. He doesn't beg Jake to stop. He just watches, his eyes steady, like he's studying every move Jake makes. Why doesn't Tommy break? That's the question nobody asking, but they should. Because every time Jake laughs, every time he calls Tommy a name, something happening inside Tommy. It's not sadness, it's not fear, it's something stronger, something growing bigger with every mean word. Jake thinks he's winning, but he's wrong. Tommy, not losing, he's waiting. Waiting for what? Oh, you'll see. Tommy's got a secret, remember? It's like a seed he's been watering for a long time and it's starting to sprout. Every time Jake pushes him, that secret gets a little tougher, a little brighter. It's not something you can see like a new toy or a shiny phone. It's deeper than that. It's something Jake doesn't expect, something he can't even imagine. In the cafeteria, after Jake leaves, Tommy picks up his apple and takes a slow bite. The other kids are back to their chatter, but a few sneak looks at him. They're probably thinking, poor Tommy, another bad day. But they're wrong, too. Tommy's not feeling sorry for himself. He's not planning to hide or give up. He's thinking about something else, something that makes his heart beat a little faster. The bell rings and Tommy grabs his tray. He walks past the smear of peanut butter on the floor, his sneakers quiet on the tiles. Kids rush around him, heading to class, but Tommy's in no hurry. He's got his own plan and it's ticking along like a clock. Jake thinks he's the king of the school, but kings fall sometimes. And Tommy, he's got something up his sleeve that's going to make everyone stop and stare. What's Tommy waiting for? Why's he so calm when Jake's so mean? Stick around, because this story about to get wild. Tommy's secret is like a storm brewing, and when it hits, Jake going to wish he'd left that sandwich alone. Weeks passed at Lincoln Middle School and things got tougher for Tommy Reed. Jake Carter, the big loud bully, didn't stop picking on him. If anything, he got worse, way worse. It was like Jake thought making Tommy's life hard was a game, and he wanted to win every single day. Lunchtime hallways, even the playground, Jake was always there, ready to cause trouble. But Tommy, he was holding on to something nobody knew about, something that made him different. And little by little, that something started to show. Let's talk about one day that really stood out. It was a regular Tuesday and the cafeteria was packed. The air smelled like fries and ketchup, and kids were laughing, tossing napkins and clinking trays. Tommy was at his usual spot, a small table near the back, away from the noise. His lunch was simple: a ham sandwich, a bag of chips, and a juice box. He was just about to take a bite when Jake and his crew showed up. Jake was tall, with spiky hair and a mean grin. His buddies, 3 kids who stuck to him like glue, were right behind him, giggling already. They stomped over to Tommy's table, making the floor shake. "Hey, toothpick," Jake said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Before Tommy could move, Jake grabbed his sandwich and held it up. "This looks gross," he said, laughing. Then, instead of just taking a bite like usual, he threw it on the floor. Splat. The sandwich hit the tiles and Jake stomped on it, his sneaker smashing it flat. Ketchup oozed out, splattering everywhere like red paint. The whole cafeteria burst into laughter. Kids pointed, their voices loud and sharp. Jake's buddies were doubled over, slapping their knees. Jake leaned close to Tommy, so close Tommy could see the freckles on his nose. "What are you gonna do about it, toothpick?" he whispered, his voice mean and teasing. He waited, expecting Tommy to cry or run away like most kids would. But Tommy did something nobody expected. He smiled. Not a big, happy smile, just a tiny one, like he knew a secret Jake didn't. His eyes stayed calm behind his big glasses, and that little smile made Jake's grin falter for a second. Tommy didn't say a word. He just bent down, picked up the squashed sandwich, and dropped it back on his tray. Then he stood up, grabbed his juice box, and walked away, his sneakers quiet on the sticky floor. The other kids whispered to each other as he left. "What's wrong with him?" one girl said. "Why doesn't he fight back?" a boy asked. They didn't get it. To them, Tommy looked weak, like he was giving up. Jake laughed louder, thinking he'd won again. "See ya, loser," he shouted, and his crew cheered. But they were all wrong. Tommy wasn't weak. He wasn't giving up. He was planning. See, Tommy wasn't just sitting around feeling sad. He had a secret, something big, something he'd been working on for a long time. And every time Jake was mean, that secret got stronger, like a muscle getting bigger with exercise. Nobody knew about it, not Jake, not the other kids, not even the teachers. It was Tommy, and he was keeping it safe until the right moment. After school that day, when the halls were empty and the buses were gone, Tommy did something he'd been doing for weeks. He slipped out the back door of the school, past the playground, and headed to the old gym. Nobody used that gym anymore. It was dusty, with creaky floors and faded paint on the walls. The basketball hoops were rusty and the lights barely worked. Most kids didn't even know it was there, but Tommy did. It was his place. Inside, Tommy dropped his backpack by the door and took off his glasses. He didn't need them for this. The gym was quiet except for the sound of his sneakers on the wood floor. He started moving fast. He jumped, he spun, he kicked the air like it was an invisible enemy. His hands flew in quick punches, one after another, sharp and strong. Every step he took was smooth, like he'd done it 1,000 times, and he had. Tommy wasn't just playing around, he was practicing moves nobody at school could have guessed he knew. Every punch he threw, every kick he landed, it was like he was getting ready for something big, something that would make Jake's jaw drop. Sweat dripped down his face, but Tommy didn't stop. He moved faster, his breath steady, his eyes focused. The old gym echoed with the sound of his feet, like it was cheering him on. Why was Tommy doing this? That's what you're wondering, right? Here's a tiny hint. It wasn't about fighting for fun, it was about being ready. Ready for what? Oh, you'll see. Let's just say Tommy wasn't the kid everyone thought he was. Behind his quiet stares and holy sneakers was something powerful, something he'd been building for years. And every time Jake laughed or pushed him, it was like adding fuel to a fire inside Tommy. Back at school the next day, Jake was at it again. This time it was in the hallway before math class. Tommy was carrying his books, trying to get to his locker. Jake spotted him and grinned. "Yo, Four Eyes," he called, jogging over. Before Tommy could dodge, Jake bumped into him hard. Tommy's books flew out of his hands, scattering across the floor. Papers slid everywhere, and one book landed in a puddle from someone's spilled water bottle. "Oops," Jake said, not sounding sorry at all. His buddies laughed and a few other kids snickered. Tommy knelt down, picking up his stuff. His math book was wet and a page was torn. Most kids would have been mad or embarrassed, their face turning red. But Tommy, he just kept working, stacking his books neatly. And if you looked close, really close, you'd see that tiny smile again, just for a second. A girl nearby, Sarah, watched him. She was quiet like Tommy, and Jake picked on her sometimes, too. "Why do you let him do that?" she whispered when Jake was gone. Tommy looked at her, his glasses slipping down his nose. "It's okay," he said softly. "It won't be like this forever." Sarah frowned, confused, but Tommy didn't explain. He just grabbed his books and headed to class. That's how it went for weeks. Jake kept pushing, taking Tommy's lunch, tripping him in gym, calling him names like nerd or loser. The other kids kept watching, some feeling bad, some laughing along. The teachers, they didn't see most of it. Jake was sneaky, doing stuff when no one was looking, but Tommy saw everything. He noticed every smirk, every shove, every mean word. And every time, that secret of his grew a little bigger, a little closer to coming out. Late one afternoon, Tommy was back in the old gym. The sun was low, making the dusty windows glow orange. He moved faster than ever, his punches sharp, his kicks high. He wasn't just practicing now, he was perfecting. Every move was smooth, like he was dancing to a song only he could hear. His backpack sat by the door, forgot. His glasses were on the floor. This was Tommy, real Tommy, not the quiet kid everyone ignored. As he finished, he stood still, breathing hard. The gym was silent again. Tommy looked at his hands, then out the window. Soon, he said to himself, so quiet it was almost a whisper. He wasn't scared, he wasn't angry, he was ready. What was Tommy getting ready for? Why was he so calm when Jake was so mean? That's the fun of this story, it's all building to something huge. Tommy's secret wasn't just a trick or a toy. It was him, stronger, smarter, braver than anyone knew. And when it came out, Jake and everyone else would see Tommy read in a whole new way. It was a bright Friday morning and the school cafeteria was loud and full. Kids were everywhere, talking, laughing, and grabbing food from their trays. Tommy Carter sat by himself at a small table in the corner, like he always did. His lunch bag was in front of him, a plain brown bag with his name written on it in marker. His glasses slid a little down his nose and his messy hair stuck out, but he didn't care. He just kept his hands on his bag, waiting. Then the doors swung open, and in walked Jake Miller with his two best friends, Max and Ethan. Jake was the biggest kid in 6th grade, with broad shoulders and a loud voice. Everyone called them the Kings because they acted like they owned the whole school. Jake's eyes locked onto Tommy right away and a big grin spread across his face. Max and Ethan followed behind, nudging each other and chuckling. They loved picking on Tommy. It was like a game they never got tired of. Jake stomped over to Tommy's table and stopped, looming over him. "Hey, nerd," he said, loud enough for kids at nearby tables to turn their heads. "What's in that bag today, huh? Got anything good for us?" He leaned closer, his shadow falling over Tommy's lunch. Tommy didn't move at first. He just held onto his bag a little tighter, his fingers gripping the edges. The cafeteria was still noisy, but a few kids stopped talking, watching to see what would happen. Jake didn't wait for an answer. He reached down and snatched the lunch bag right out of Tommy's hands. He held it up high, waving it like a flag. "What's this? A sandwich, an apple, or maybe you're gonna cry before I even look," he said, laughing. Max and Ethan laughed too, slapping their hands together. "Yeah, Tommy, you gonna cry yet?" Max teased, pointing at him. Then something happened that nobody expected. Tommy stood up. The whole cafeteria went quiet, like someone turned off all the sound. Kids stopped eating, their forks and spoons frozen in the air. A girl dropped her juice box and it thumped on the table, but she didn't even notice. The lunch ladies behind the counter stopped wiping trays and peeked over, their eyes wide. Tommy was small, way smaller than Jake. His skinny arms looked like they could barely lift a book, and his glasses made him look like the kid who always got picked last in gym. But right now he didn't look scared, not one bit. Tommy pushed his glasses up with one finger and took a step toward Jake. His sneakers squeaked on the floor, but his face was calm. He looked right into Jake's eyes, not blinking. "Give it back," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was steady, like he meant every word. Jake's grin slipped for a second. He wasn't used to Tommy talking back. "Give it back," Jake said, trying to laugh. "Or what, nerd? What are you gonna do?" His voice sounded shaky, like he wasn't so sure anymore. Max and Ethan kept giggling, but it was nervous giggling now. Tommy tilted his head like he was thinking about something important. He looked at Jake from top to bottom like he was measuring him. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Then Tommy said the words that made everyone's mouths fall open. "Or I'll fight you," he said, "right now, outside." Fight Tommy Carter, the kid who spent lunch drawing superheroes in his notebook, the kid who tripped running laps in gym class. Max burst out laughing, holding his stomach like it hurt. "You fight Jake," he said, gasping. Ethan was laughing so hard he could barely stand up. "Oh man, this is hilarious," he said, pointing at Tommy, but Jake wasn't laughing. His face turned bright red like an apple. He couldn't let Tommy talk to him like that, not with the whole school watching. If he backed down, everyone would think he was scared. "You're on, nerd," Jake said, his voice low and angry. He threw Tommy's lunch bag to the floor, letting it land with a smack. The bag crumpled and an apple rolled out, bouncing across the tiles. Tommy didn't even look at it. He just nodded like he'd been ready for this all along. The kids jumped up from their seats, shoving to get out the cafeteria doors. They spilled onto the playground, their voices loud and excited. "Tommy's gonna fight Jake," one boy shouted. "No way, he's crazy," a girl said. The crowd formed a big circle on the grass, buzzing like bees. Jake marched out first, his fists balled up tight. Max and Ethan followed, still snickering but glancing at each other nervously. Tommy walked out last, his steps slow and sure. The playground was wide and sunny, with swings and slides in the background. The circle of kids grew bigger as more ran out to watch. Jake stood in the middle, tall and strong, cracking his knuckles loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're gonna wish you never said that, Carter," he said, glaring down at Tommy. Tommy was so small next to him, his shadow barely reaching Jake's knees. "Last chance to run," Jake added, smirking. Tommy didn't run, he didn't even flinch. Instead, he did something that made the crowd gasp again. He reached up, took off his glasses, and handed them to a kid standing nearby. "Hold these," he said. The kid's eyes were huge, but he took the glasses and nodded. Tommy stepped into the circle, his hands loose by his sides.